time for the 100-day agenda, where we get CEOs, economists and thought leaders to chart out the 100-day agenda for the new government. And today we've got Mr. Ashok Wadhwa, Group CEO of Ambit Holdings, joining in with the tax and the legal perspective, really. Mr. Wadhwa, what in your opinion should be the single most important priority for the government once it takes charge?
Well, I guess by the time the new government is in power, we will be on June the 1st. And then they have a very short window to announce the budget for 2014. Relatively short period to be able to make any big bang reform or significant announcements. But I guess 2 or 3 critical elements that will really be key to the budget of 2014 is what sort of announcement and time plan does the government lay out for GST and for DTC. To me, clarity that these regulations will be introduced and will be introduced in foreseeable future, preferably not beyond 2015 and certainly not beyond 2016, will be critical. Government's emphasis on managing fiscal deficit and their commitment to maintain fiscal deficit as was announced in the vote for account, that would be another important, very important emphasis, I would say. If anything, in terms of the fact that the government will continue supporting FDI, this whole thing about multi-brand in some ways has sent confusing signals out. So any emphasis on the fact that FDI will continue to be an important mechanism for government to invite foreign companies and B, invite long-term foreign capital, I think will go a long way. So I would say, good continuity of what has been announced over the last few months, but with greater emphasis.
Mr. Wadhwa, to your mind, what kind of damage has been caused, to investor sentiment because of the uncertainty that surrounds the implementation and rollout of both the GST as well as the DTC?
I don't think there's been any damage in terms of lack of announcement or implementation of GST. I mean, remember, GST will facilitate a more efficient supply chain. It will help companies reorganize their businesses and cut significant amount of costs. And as several economists have repeatedly said, it has the ability to add 1 to 1.5% to our GDP just by making the whole system so much more efficient. But as far as DTC and related subjects are concerned, sure, I think 3 years ago, both the Vodafone as well as the GAR amendments left truly deep scars in terms of reliance and consistency of Indian regulation. I think government needs to provide a lot of comfort to global investors that those were one-time aberrations that have been corrected, and that going forward, there will not be similar retroactive amendments, and there will not be regulations and regulatory environment created that makes it very difficult and opaque for foreign companies to be able to plan their business here in India. So I would say emphasis on those subjects will be critical in the new budget.
Since you did mention deep scars, I suppose you're the best person to answer this. How should the new government deal, with this feeling of mistrust that lies between the tax department and MNCs? This has been a sore point for the past couple of years.
I would argue that the new finance minister should come and ease the pressure of revenue collection from the revenue department. It's easy to sit here and blame the revenue department for doing things that are over-aggressive in nature. Little do we remember that the direction actually comes from the finance minister, who's obviously very keen to maximize revenue collection, and that because he wants to manage fiscal deficit. So I think, easing of that pressure, providing comfort that retroactive amendments will not be made, providing comfort that regulations that are introduced going forward will be first provided in public domain for a discussion, a debate, and that appropriate opinions will be sought before such introductions are made, versus just announcing them in the budget and saying that they are effective from April 1, such and such a date. I think the finance minister, Mr. Chidambaram, in that sense has made a significantly positive move forward in terms of how he's dealt with these legislations over the budget last year, and then subsequent changes and announcements that he's made, and continuity of that going forward will help provide and build greater trust. And I would say some form of dispute resolution mechanism which allows for a defined term and a definitive solution at the end of the term, such that there is not ongoing litigation. I mean, somebody was telling me that if all litigation in India has to be settled, then we need another 300 years to get that done. Now, you know, who's got that time to wait and waste?
Mr. Wadhwa, what are some of the key sectors and where the new government needs to make radical policy changes according to you to facilitate growth and revive the investor appetite?
Infrastructure, probably led by power and utilities, would be the #1 criteria for the government. But even otherwise, generically, anything in the infrastructure space, the road program, the highway program, development of ports, development of minor airports, all this would augur extremely well and positively for the new government, because it will demonstrate an element of decisiveness and kickstart a sector that has been plagued with inconsistencies, lack of policy and volatility over the last many years. And let's not forget the impact that this sector will have on the banking sector, as I said, because a lot of the banking sector money is invested in this business, and we keep wondering whether that money is stressed or not stressed at this point of time, and whether it has been provided or not been provided, and should it be provided, how much more capital will that sector need. So I would say one would start supporting the other, and the two together will certainly augur very well for the future of the Indian economy.
Mr. Wadhwa, the final question to you then. You've been a top deal maker for many years on the M&A front. What changes are you looking forward to from the new government to provide some sort of an impetus to deal activity?
I think just the change in sentiment, and we are seeing that already over the last 3 months, as there is greater and greater clarity that there will be a government with relative amount of political stability, and it could be BJP led by Mr. Modi. As that clarity emerges, you are already seeing people talk about transactions, about potential acquisitions, about potential sale. And in many ways, a stable economic environment augurs very well for deal flows and for more M&A activity. M&A activity needs a lot of capital support, both debt and equity, and obviously a good economic environment, led by a positive run on the stock market, means it's easier for companies to raise both debt and equity capital. So that obviously facilitates more deal making. And generally, when there is positive and stable economic environment, more foreign companies are looking at investing in India, more Indian companies are looking at investing and growing. And obviously, mergers and acquisitions is one way to create the best value, because consolidation obviously results in synergies that responds very positively to a developing and positive economic environment.